Today's lecture will explore in more depth universal design for learning and differentiated instruction. We'll begin by diving into DI more deeply and discuss what this means for your teaching practice. This is a project I did with my students. We made a movie from shadow puppets. The students had to design and create their own puppets. They had to write a story with their puppet as the main character. Then they had to videotape their puppet performing the story. So what kinds of representations were used in this activity? Visuals through the design of the puppet, video, movement, deciding how the puppet should move, then physically manipulating the puppet in the story. Students also included sound effects in their movies, so we used multiple means to represent the information. This leads me to raise the question of what is literacy? In ASL, a common way to sign this is read-write. That doesn't really capture it. Literacy, as we understand it today, is not limited to the ability to read and write. Literacy includes developing cognitive skills. Literacy includes multimodality, reading, writing, speaking, gesture, visual, spatial, tactile. These are all forms of literacy. Also included is socioeconomic development. This too is a form of literacy. People need these skills to acquire the necessary information to, say, run a business, to earn a living, or find a job, to determine the training they require to reach their employment goals. Another important literacy is social awareness and citizenship. What information do we need to understand how our communities function? Finally, we need to develop critical reflection and social justice skills. All these dimensions are now considered under the umbrella term of literacy. So what does that mean for you when considering developing literacy skills for your students? It means you'll need to know their thinking, feeling, valuing, what is judged to be more or less valued. You have to understand their identities, interactions, cultures, communities, and writing. Our definition of literacy today incorporates a broad array of understandings. The former definition of literacy was restricted to the ability to read and write, but not today. It's way bigger than that. What happens today when a student cannot read or write? You'll see the blue triangle on the slide. At the top are the writing elites in society, the people whose writing is considered advanced. This includes government, academics, and researchers. It also includes novelists, authors, and other writers, as well as TV or movie script writers. These kind of people are considered the most talented writers and hold most of the power. Lower down on the triangle are those of us who use alternative ways of communicating, using pictures, sound, or recordings, those who communicate through art, music, and performance, and other tactile modes. That is where our future lies. What happens when a child is prevented from learning to read or write? Believe me, there is a significant number of students who are at risk, who struggle to develop these skills. Students who are potentially at risk include ELL students, students with acquired brain injury, students with dyslexia, students with hyperalexis, students with mixed reading difficulties, and I'll expand on that later. Deaf and hard of hearing students, students with intellectual disabilities, student with emotional concerns, students with autism or other syndromes. How do we work with those students? Is UDL the answer? Can differentiating instruction help? We'll give these questions some thought. While it is true that many students will struggle to read for meaning, research shows reading is like a formula. The formula is outlined on the slide. Reading for comprehension relies on the student's ability to decode what they are reading. This is at the word level reading for meaning. The second criteria is that the student must have linguistic comprehension, meaning the ability to speak and understand the spoken language. Of course, this formula assumes that the student is hearing. In deaf education, we deaf teachers have a different approach and deal with different issues. Are we coming from a presumed incompetence mindset? Are we presuming the student is not a reader? Are we assuming they do not have the necessary capabilities? What do these reading struggles really entail? If we have a student that is fluent in the spoken language of the classroom, but still struggles to read text, decode words, or parse sentences, are we presuming that they will not be able to read for comprehension? What about the student who can identify the meaning of individual words, but doesn't have fluency in the language? This does happen. This happens to deaf students. Deaf students work hard at learning the meaning of all the words in the sentence, but because they don't understand the language, they struggle with reading comprehension. Does that mean they are not capable? Sometimes we are quick to judge. For students who have difficulties decoding and/or comprehending text, then printed materials, no matter what the format, can be a significant barrier to learning. If we limit our definition of reading to constructing meaning from written text, we are creating barriers. What does it mean to read a book? It means one needs to understand a wide range of texts. For example, newspapers or a shopping list, movies or images. Those are forms of text. Another format would be Facebook messages, posts, other social media. In a literacy program, we would want the students to become familiar with different types of text. We want the student to understand the purpose of the text. What is it meant to accomplish? What's the goal? The text will have a social purpose. Is the goal to help people to get along with one another? Then a certain text will be used. If the goal is to hammer home a point, then other writing strategies will be used. Students need to be aware of how certain texts are targeting selected audiences and purposes. Compare and contrast why one form of text be used over another. Another skill would be interpreting texts created by others. Look at yourselves as an example. Some of you are struggling to interpret what is meant by what we have written about assignments in E-class. So you are asking questions to clarify. We all have to take care to interpret the writing and intentions of what is written by others. I've had quite a few emails asking what is meant by. Interpreting the text in front of us requires us to pull from our knowledge of oral, written, and audiovisual texts. So all of these skills and abilities are needed to read a book. It's complex and it's multi-layered. So, we acknowledge that some students have difficulty reading printed text and or writing with pen and paper. I can remember 3 or 4 deaf students in my program who had real difficulties with handwriting. They were in grade 9 and 14 years old, but they couldn't even write their names legibly on a piece of paper. So we did some handwriting lessons. We worked on their physical ability to write on paper. They improved their handwriting, at least in terms of writing their names legibly. I was able to convince them of the why for learning to do this by explaining that in the future, they will have to write their names on forms and paperwork like a mortgage. They saw the rationale and worked on it, but their handwriting beyond their own name was still pretty bad. They had to painstakingly print and practice each letter of the alphabet. If they had to copy something from the board, it took a long time. Many students struggle to connect the different pieces. For example, what's the connection between the sign or poster on the wall with the sound and words, plus the symbols, as well as the pictures? Some don't get it because they have learning difficulties, but others don't get it because we don't actually overtly teach it. We don't teach about design. We put together our teaching materials. Let's assume we're creating slides, including text, images, and other features. Is it well designed? Is the relationship between your representations clear? Or is it more or less randomly put together with lots of information thrown out at once? Whatever you are creating, slides, video, other materials, consider whether the connections between the elements are clear. As the students begin to take in the information, then the connections will emerge for them. We introduced this idea earlier about UDL and DI to reduce the barriers to learning. We know we need to optimize the learning experience by finding the right levels of support and challenge. The image on the slide demonstrates the difference between equality and equity. Equality, giving everyone the same support, does not ensure equity. The shortest student in this image gets the same size box, but still cannot see over the fence. The level of support for one student need not be the same as the next student. and some may need no support in a given task. I want to add some more comments to this concept. Determining equitable support needs to be thought through carefully. Sometimes we provide too much support and not enough challenge. And the reverse is also true, where the task is too challenging for the student and not enough support is given. The balance falls to you to figure out by knowing your students. Once you figure out their skills, abilities, and needs, then you identify any barriers to learning that may be present. In this case, we're talking about printed text. Set your expectations at what you think is an appropriately high level. If you waive the reading and writing task for them, then your expectations of their abilities is low. Your role is to minimize or eliminate barriers. Your role is not to exempt them from the reading and writing tasks. You are looking for strategies to get them there, to get them around the reading difficulty. Once the barriers are managed, then they are on their way to achieving the learning outcome, towards getting to the point where they say, "I get this." Be flexible and creative in how the outcome is achieved. Expecting all children the same age to learn from the same materials is like expecting all children the same age to wear the same size clothing. So then, how do you teach literacy skills? It will draw upon a number of your teaching skills, such as assessing students' needs, creating a balanced reading program, selecting quality literature, developing a quality writing program, as well as designing interventions to support struggling readers. What underpins all of this is design. Well, when designing your teaching, consider these factors: linguistic information, social knowledge, cultural information, historical contexts, critical thinking, semiotic information, which means understanding of symbols used in society, traffic signs being one example among the many others that exist around us. So your job is to sleuth out the multiple ways your students can access the content. Some will more easily take in the linguistic information, others will connect with the cultural information. It's the way you can draw them into engaging with the text. There are many ways you can use as an entry point to hook your students to connect to the text. If you are able to provide materials and resources through multiple modalities, then you are minimizing the barriers for most of your learners. The world outside of school is not the same as the world inside of school in many aspects. In the real world, it is totally acceptable to communicate and access information through texting, Facebook, Instagram, and many other forms of communication. But in school, we prioritize reading and writing almost exclusively as the primary means of communication. The outside world has become far more interactive, multidirectional, and increasingly nonlinear. So indeed, the world is changing. This is a far cry from the world I grew up in, but maybe not so different for you. Today, we have many more options in how we engage in our reading. I thought this was cute. Dude, can you turn your newspaper down? I'm trying to sleep. How exactly is a newspaper too loud? Well, when the reader is using text read aloud features on their device. If students can choose what works best for them, student engagement and success are increased. We should attempt to create a learning environment in which ideas and information are represented in multiple ways. Design is everything. Remember this guide: signs plus sound plus words plus symbols plus pictures equals design. In your design, try to use visual, auditory, and digital lesson materials, not just worksheets. In my teaching practice, I stopped using paper ages ago. I still have lots of books though. And I bet most of our lives are in our laptops. So weird. Present information using multiple formats. On this slide is a graphic of formats for representations that fit the needs of deaf and hard of hearing students. Information needs to be provided or available through sign language dictionaries, images, interactive videos, enhanced search functions, print or text, and dynamic layouts. That's a lot of information and features to design for. Our resources should allow for digital or other electronic options for engaging with the text instead of paper handout. This is an example of a digital exercise. We have the English terms in the first column. Then there is the corresponding diagram for the terms. And in the third column, we have short video clips of ASL terms for the diagrams. The student can click on a word, an image, or the ASL clip to get more information. So you can see they have several choices. Other options include text-to-speech features, audiobooks, and partner reading, where each student takes a turn reading and they can discuss the content. Technology allows students the freedom to adjust font sizes, font types, etc., as well as background colors, in order to make it more comfortable for them to read. I would like to take a bit of time now to discuss ebooks, sometimes called digital textbooks. This one you see on the slide is one I produced. It's available free for anyone who wants to use it. It was created on the Pressbooks platform. That's a platform that gives the creator a great deal of flexibility in how to present the material. It's no surprise to you that digital text is far more flexible than paper-based text. It's so easy to move things around on the screen, resize, change colors, among other features. In the Pressbook software, font size, styles, colors, and so on can easily be changed without affecting the content. Lengthy passages can be separated into smaller, manageable sections according to your learner's needs and your teaching design. With a simple click of the mouse, each section appears on the screen. In this way, you are not tasked to read a screenful of text. You can play around with the contrast, background, colors, and so on. Text-to-speech software is embedded and can be used in any digital textbook. Pressbooks has the ability to hyperlink. This has the advantage of making the text interactive and nonlinear. This allows you to design and use visual representations and image-based interaction. Simply reading text on the screen is old school. Might as well be reading from a sheet of paper. E-books provide more opportunities for interactive activities and the flexibility to manipulate, move around, resize the content on the screen. You have the ability to add any image. Images often reinforce learning and help with comprehension. Working with paper is pretty limiting in this regard. Using textbooks limits you to what the authors thought important. Too bad, so sad, nothing you can do to change it. But in an ebook, you can change anything you want. This tool allows you to take text from any source and simplify it to the level that meets the comprehension skills of your students. This could help your design for learning. Students can really benefit from this tool. There are numerous options for text-to-speech software. If a learner is overwhelmed by the text, this feature might help them to focus and understand. A feature of text-to-speech technology is the synchronized highlighting. Choosing any color of highlight the student prefers, the speech output is synchronized with the highlighting, allowing the student to more easily track what is being read. Text-to-speech technology can support students with decoding challenges, as long as the student is fluent in the spoken language. It's a good tool for the student who understands what's being said, but needs support with identifying words associated with what they are hearing. Text-to-speech technology can also support emerging readers. In this case, they still have the ability to speak and understand the spoken language, but the technology is helping with developing word-level recognition and reading skills. Text-to-speech technology can also support English language learners. It reinforces the listening skills, even though they may not understand it all. Still, it can assist with making connections between the print and the audio to assist with reading and language learning. Text-to-speech technology, coupled with magnification, can support students who are blind. Text-to-speech technology can help students with the editing process. Asking students to listen to the text they have written helps them identify what needs to be changed. Does it sound right? It helps students catch mistakes they might otherwise overlook. This particular Live Scribe Smart Pen tool helps students with poor cursive writing. This will convert it to legible text. It captures words, audio, scribbles, symbols, and diagrams. Simply tap on your notes, meaning your chicken scratch. Oh well, I am guessing many of you have handwriting that looks like chicken scratch. So you tap on what's written, and let's see what happens. Voila! It converts your notes to typed text. It allows you to transfer all your notes and recordings to your device. You can take your notes with you wherever you go. Load it into your calendar or your preferred word processing program. You can use the controls to slow down, speed up, or change the volume of your Live Scribe playback. There are several other features you can control. For students who do struggle with decoding text, audiobooks can be an excellent option to support learning. I'm sure you are aware of the options available to access audiobooks. Recorded books allow users to listen to text and are available in a variety of formats and devices. I remember for Christmas one year, I got a Kindle. It was completely worn out after only a year. Now I just use my phone. I can scroll through and read whatever I want. Of course, I never use the audio feature. Audiobooks have the advantage of special playback units. It allows users to search, as well as bookmark pages and chapters. Subscription services offer extensive electronic library collections. Picture books are a wonderful teaching tool. I use them often in my practice. You might assume picture books are geared towards young children, but that's not the case. Some are quite sophisticated. Pedagogically, you can encourage the students to analyze the pictures to see how they support the story, character development, and plot. These books are often very well done and quite beautiful. So consider this option in lieu of teaching a text-heavy book. Another valuable resource for teachers is this Learn Alberta website. You'll find many amazing materials and resources there. It has its own search engine, so you just pop in your keywords to locate resources that you can use in your lesson plan. It's all free and ready to use. National Geographic Young Explorers is a magazine that targets K-12 students, but it is especially good for kindergarten. It's absolutely beautiful. Here's another text-to-speech option. It's a magazine for kids, and they can listen to the audio and read along, following the highlighted text. So another cool resource. So, how do you teach? That's a big question. Create a learning environment in which ideas and information are represented in multiple ways. I just want to go back a bit here to review some of these principles. Articulate and emphasize the learning goals and expectations. It's important that your expectations are high. I have seen many students become underachievers from a culture of low expectations. If the student needs audiobooks to support reading, great. If they need some other technology, fine. But what's not okay is to exempt them from reading or writing because of our low expectations. I worked with many smart and capable learners who struggled with or could not read text, but did benefit from audiobooks. This kind of stimulation improves their critical thinking skills and learning. You need to summarize key points throughout the learning activity and tie these back to the larger learning goal. Learning is always iterative. You are constantly connecting the new concept with previous knowledge. It's a cyclical process, reinforcing previous learning with new material. By summarizing key points throughout the unit, it helps students to remember what you want to emphasize. Help students to see how the information is transferable to other classes and lessons. I remember working with the deaf students. We were exploring the use of metaphor. They were able to apply the metaphorical device to help with understanding their science lesson or history material. That was awesome. So whenever you can, try to identify how information is transferable to other courses. You should model comprehension strategies such as note-taking, highlighting, monitoring, and asking questions. It's important that students see you use these strategies as well. I want to explore note-taking for a bit. I thought I'd go through what the research says about note-taking. One-word notes or reminders, short phrases, aren't that useful. The research shows that more is better. Try to get as much down as you can. If you can write quickly or keyboard quickly, then more is better. Explicitly teaching various note-taking strategies can make a difference. Having said that, I never taught note-taking strategies to deaf students. It's pretty much impossible to watch the interpreter or signing teacher and write notes in real time. What I did do, though, was ask the students to use their phones to take pictures of the notes that were on the board. Then we would work on developing the habit of reviewing these notes recorded on their phones. Adding visuals boosts the power of notes. This notion is just starting to take hold. Old school note-taking was just linear text on a page. From this, students would then visualize the information in their heads. Times they are a-changing. Note-taking strategies recommend creating a second set of notes after reviewing the first set of notes. Revising your notes to create a more concise and organized new set of notes helps with learning. Collaboration with a peer to cross-reference the content of one another's notes for clarity and correctness also reinforces learning. Pausing to reflect deeply on the notes also boosts learning. We want to scaffold the students through their learning. We can use the zone of proximal development as a guide. It's an important concept that you will need to have memorized. I believe this is taught more thoroughly in other courses. Using the note-taking task as an example, scaffolding could look like this. Support the students to practice note-taking as a class. Give them instructions. Support them in completing the task. Next, you let them try on their own. If they seem to struggle or if they ask for help, then you give them support and additional instruction on note-taking techniques they are working on. As they begin to master it, you take a back seat. Check in as needed, provide additional support until they are working independently. Providing your own notes helps reinforce the content of your lesson. There are note-taking apps and other electronic options, but the research shows that handwritten notes are more effective for learning retention. That resonates with me. Handwritten notes are even more effective than taking notes on a laptop. There is something about the physicality of putting pen to paper and the act of writing that helps with retention, more so than using fine motor skills of keyboarding. Still, there are apps available that can assist with note-taking. Collaborating with a neighbor is very effective. I don't mean your next-door neighbor. I mean with a peer in the class. When peers discuss their notes, they can identify gaps in the information. Most of the time, something is missed. Collaboration catches this missed information and helps with retention. I have always used a highlighter, even to this day, including in my electronic books. I use the yellow highlighter feature often. I find it a very useful tool. Another technique is to create questions from the notes. During the revision process, students can ask themselves, what kinds of questions could appear on quizzes or tests on this topic? Another technique is to go through the notes and select 5 key words. Then create a story around that word. This level of engagement helps with retention. Another strategy is summarizing key concepts collaboratively with peers. It's important that you, as the teacher, model note-taking and articulate the process as you go through it. This reinforces for the students the necessary steps. An alternative is to assign student note-takers for the class, who can then share their notes with those who cannot take notes. That's the story of my life. Seriously. I started to get the notes from other students in high school, but it wasn't the teacher who facilitated this. I would sheepishly ask a classmate to borrow their notes and rewrite them myself and then hand them back with gratitude. In university, I was more assertive and I would ask the student next to me if I could make photocopies of their notes. Invariably, they were always willing to help me. The problem was, it was a crapshoot in terms of the quality of the notes. Some students would take copious notes. Wonderful. Other students would have one line for an hour-long class. Then I'd try to get a second student's notes and try and match them up. I had to do this on my own. As I recall, in high school, I actually only used note takers in chem class, not for any of the other classes. The goal of note-taking is not to copy and then store the information for later study. The goal is to learn the information in the moment. Do you remember when you were young? Well, maybe you don't remember. But I remember when I was young, we all sat at our desks in rows. The teacher would fill the blackboard with all kinds of notes, and we would just sit and copy down the notes. We would write everything down, but we wouldn't be thinking about what we were copying. Learning doesn't happen by simply copying. Learning happens through synthesizing and reflecting on the information while copying. The simple act of copying is not learning. Sometimes I chunk my note-taking. If the information is lengthy, then I'll try to organize it in chunks. Here's an activity. Have the students listen or read for just 1 minute without writing anything down. Then they take 1 minute to write what they remember. Alternate this activity to develop chunking skills. This website has more cool ideas for note-taking. This Cult of Pedagogy website was created by educators whose every fiber of being is to explore and share all manner of ideas for teaching and learning. So I recommend you check out this site. So, how do you teach? Create a learning environment in which ideas and information are represented in multiple ways. Simplify complex instructions by providing visuals and manipulatives to increase understanding. Provide resources students can touch and manipulate. That really supports the learning process. I did an activity where I asked the students to read a recipe for making lemonade. They had to go over it carefully to understand which ingredients were needed and what the instructions were to make it. Then they were put into groups. One group was given the correct recipe. One group was given the recipe with wrong information. A third group was given an even worse recipe. In the end, they were able to make the lemonade correctly, but it was a challenge for some students. In this activity, they had to manipulate the ingredients, read the directions. As a group, they had to discuss what they were reading to determine what to do next. In the end, they all were able to solve the problem. We want to reduce or eliminate the barriers to learning. Use art. Use manipulatives to help with math concepts. Use colors in different ways. Consider how to eliminate barriers to learning. Offer visuals like charts, pictures, movies, audio, and so on. Here's another example of addressing some learning barriers. Create a word wall. You can make word maps or diagrams. These kinds of activities engage tactile learners. Let's take a bit of time to discuss visuals. Visuals can transmit information faster. Let's see how. On this slide, you can see the graphic of a red square. Compare it to the textual description, a plain figure with 4 equal straight sides and 4 right angles. This visual is much easier to understand. Research reports that visuals have been found to improve learning by up to 400%. That is indeed significant. Studies have shown that visuals, such as graphic organizers and semantic maps, improve performance. Performance improved in the following areas. First, in reading comprehension. Using a graphic organizer means the images can be manipulated, and when connected to the text, comprehension is improved. Second, performance improved in organizing and communicating ideas. These organizing tools help them to plan writing tasks. Thirdly, performance improved in students' ability to find patterns and relationships among disparate things. Fourthly, they found there was overall improvement in student achievement. Visuals create faster and stronger emotional reactions compared to simply speaking. Visuals can help students engage with the content. Emotional reactions can be discussed. These factors influence information retention.